There is a march in the void that is never heard. No fanfare accompanies it, no cheering banners wave, no hymns of valor are sung. It is the tread of titans from the Omega Zone, giants of old metal and forgotten names, departing for war in absolute silence, and they never return. Each deployment from the Omega Zone is whispered through ranks of commanders with dread, for though these titans obey Imperial command, though their banners fly the sigils of sanctioned legios, they carry with them the weight of some ancient cosmic wrong. Every campaign they join ends in catastrophe or silence. Entire sectors go dark. Vox traffic ceases, and if any maniple survives long enough to signal for extraction, their pleas are often met with refusal or buried beneath layers of bureaucratic denial. The Imperium, in its vast apathy and fear, pretends not to notice the pattern, but soldiers do. Skitarii whisper rites of shielding when the Omega Titans are offloaded. Battle sisters cross themselves when they glimpse one among the clouds. And in the cold heart of the Mechanicus, Magi shuffle their feet and recite litanies of absolution, knowing full well that these machines of war may already be lost before the first plasma blast is fired. Let us walk into the silence then. Let us tread where titans fall, into the mystery of why those from the Omega Zone never return. The Omega Zone does not appear on most star charts. Even among the endless vaults of the Adeptus Administratum, it is only referenced in oblique code phrases and location markers scrubbed of context. Positioned in a forgotten spiral of the Segmentum Obscurus, it is a region marked not by what is found there, but by what has vanished. Dozens of once thriving systems lie derelict or entirely obliterated, their orbits haunted by ship husks and astropathic screams that no longer have meaning. The stars shine oddly here, some flickering as if wounded, others dead yet unnaturally visible. The void whispers here, and few who pass through forget its silence. Geographically, the Omega Zone is a necrotic expanse of space bordered by warp storms and dense radiation clouds. But even beyond these natural horrors, there is a strange order to its desolation. Systems within it appear to die in patterns, as if something unseen were moving through them, feeding, extinguishing, observing. Attempts to map the region in detail often end in madness or system corruption. Explorator fleets sent to chart the zone's secrets return fragmented, if at all. Their data cogs spiral into incoherence, their servitors humming lullabies in unknown dialects. The Omega Zone resists understanding. It shuns it. Its only stable point, if such a term can even apply, is the great station fortress of Halides Ossa, a decaying Mechanicus bastion built into the carcass of a long-dead void Leviathan. Here, the Titans sleep. Entire forge wombs house these god engines in endless procession, partially submerged in fluid of unknown origin, attended by priests who have taken vows of muteness and isolation. No living soul is permitted deeper than the outer sanctum of Halides Ossa unless they bear the sigil of the Omega Priory, a now extinct Mechanicus order whose members never published a single treatise or shared a single data archive with the wider cult. What remains is locked, coded in machine script that most tech priests would rather burn than attempt to parse. The Omega Zone's spiritual impact cannot be understated. Even the most zealous of ecclesiarchy preachers grow pale when speaking of it. Its proximity to the Eye of Terror is uncomfortably close, but what emanates from it feels older, less chaotic, more final. There are no demons reported in the zone, no signs of the great enemy, and yet it devours hope just the same. It does not seduce, it erases. Chaplains have been known to weep without cause during warp transits near the zone, while navigators report being stalked by blank voids in their third eye visions, gaps not filled by warp energy, but by something far worse: total absence. Some Imperial scholars whisper heresy and call the Omega Zone a tear not in real space, but in reality itself, a place where the machine ghosts of long-dead civilizations scream for release, a region quarantined not by fleets or edicts, but by the fear etched into the hearts of those who remember what once stirred there. It is a scar across the galaxy's soul, and from it march the Titans whose silence has become legend. They emerge not with the thunderous glory of a Legio Militaris parade, but with the slow inevitability of a tomb opening. The Titans of the Omega Zone are unlike their more celebrated kin. While other Legios bear proud names like Graphonicus or Astorum, these machines go unnamed by imperial record. Their banners are faded, sigils worn down to abstract smears of bronze and iron. Only the ancient and shrouded priests of Halitus Ossa can interpret their lineage. Among themselves, they whisper names like Vox Silenti, Ashen Rude, and Threnody in iron. Names not meant to be spoken aloud. Each engine is a paradox, ancient yet visibly corrupted by age, still functioning despite gaping structural wounds and mismatched bionics. Their hulls are etched with glyphs not found in any known Mechanicus lexicon. Their reactor cores hum in alien tones, dissonant to even the most seasoned engine seers. Attempts to rearm or maintain these Titans often end in neurological failure or psychotic episodes among tech adepts. And yet, they march. Always when called. Always in silence. The Titan crews, princeps, moderati, and tech priests are equally anomalous. Most are thought to be grown or conditioned within Halitus Ossa itself. They do not speak outside their engines. They do not eat in public. They rarely disembark. The few records that describe them suggest cadaverous appearances. Flesh thin to parchment, eyes like unlit coals, voices stripped of cadence. There are rumors that some crews are not truly alive, or that their souls were scorched in the birthing vats of their god machines. Others say that the crew is merely the flesh interface, that the true command lies in the machine spirit, no longer bound by human cognition, but driven by something deeper, older. Unlike traditional Legios that communicate through structured Vox code, these Omega Titans speak in pulses of static, data bursts that cause nosebleeds and auditory hallucinations in unshielded receivers. Skitarii commanders who try to coordinate with them are often replaced after the first battle, citing cognitive dissonance or severe anxiety syndromes. The Titans do not coordinate. They simply arrive, level entire sectors with ruthless efficiency, and vanish. Whether victory or defeat follows seems secondary to their purpose. It's as though their war is not with the enemy at hand, but with something only they can perceive. The paint on their hulls tells grim stories, layers upon layers of inscriptions, some depicting martyrdoms that never occurred, some showing symbols that predate the Imperium itself. Some carry statues in their carapace shrines, fused and melted into place, figures that no historian or saint book can identify. One Titan, seen during the ill-fated campaign on Garath's Maw, bore an entire cathedral of rusted spires on its back, within which scores of skeletonized figures could be seen chained in prayer. These Titans are not remembered by the worlds they defend. No murals are painted of their deeds. No songs are written. After their passage, even memory seems to fail. The populace often forgets their presence within months, even when the devastation they wrought is evident. Administratum records get lost. Munitorum allocations vanish into black budgets, as though the galaxy itself conspires to erase their mark. And yet, they continue to rise one by one from the depths of the Omega Zone. The order to deploy a maniple from the Omega Zone is not given lightly. No mere battlefield crisis or planetary rebellion is sufficient cause. These deployments come only after dire consultations between the highest echelons of Imperial command, when multiple Ordo Malleus Inquisitors converge in cold silence, when the Fabricator General's seal is impressed upon command scrolls with trembling servo hands, when the Holy Synod recites invocation prayers older than the ecclesiarchy itself. These moments feel less like strategic decisions and more like ritual offerings, like casting a sacrificial lamb into the dark. Many high-ranking Imperial commanders do not believe the Titans from the Omega Zone should be used at all. They view them as a liability, a resource of last resort, whose activation carries metaphysical cost. It is said that when Segmentum Tempestus suffered the breach of Turalis Gate, a dozen Legios refused the call for aid until it was confirmed no Omega engines would be involved. Fear, not loyalty, guides these choices. And yet, when the situation spirals beyond control, when entire fleets are ground into dust, or when something unnameable slithers through the warp and tears stars from the sky, the order is signed. Behind these decisions lurks the quiet hand of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Though even the Archmagi of Mars speak only in riddles on the matter, it is clear that a shadow authority within the cult Mechanicus controls the deployment of Omega Zone Titans. Some suspect a remnant cabal of the Omega Priory still exists, hiding in data bunkers beneath Martian crust or drifting aboard dead explorator vessels. Others believe that the authority lies not with any living Magos, but with an ancient logic engine, a caged artificial intelligence barely tolerated for the sake of this one dark function. Once the order is sanctioned, the process is both sacred and terrifying. A beacon is lit in the warp, an archaic signal that pierces the veil with a note of metallic despair. It is not a call, but a command. Within Halitus Ossa, the Titans begin to stir. No tech adept programs them. No princeps awakens them manually. They move on their own as though guided by divine programming or haunted by their own warlust. Their deployment rituals involve no fanfare, just the distant tolling of bells forged from extinct minerals and the slow retraction of docking clamps crusted with ossified blood. Imperial Guard commanders who have fought alongside Omega Titans often describe the entire experience as disjointed, dreamlike. Briefings are delivered by proxy servitors bearing corrupted data slates. Orders come in bursts of image vision and partial code. The Titans do not coordinate with other assets. They arrive late or early, but never when expected. And when they fight, it is not with the bombastic fury of a Mars-pattern warlord, but with cold inevitability, like the grinding teeth of a forgotten god reshaping reality through repetition. Strategically, the High Lords of Terra pretend to rationalize these deployments. They issue after-action reports filled with casualty statistics, projected planetary yields, and void fleet attrition graphs. But those who survive these campaigns know the truth. The Omega Titans are not sent to win wars. They are sent to end them, completely. To purge not only the foe, but the memory of resistance itself. These are engines of erasure, not victory. Every order carries consequences. Whole sectors suffer psi disruption in the wake of an Omega Maniple's transit. Astropaths within 1,000 light-years go catatonic. Even space marine librarians report echoes of dread through the immaterium, visions of dead stars weeping oil and throne shadows bending toward them in supplication. It is not war they bring. It is something worse. And still, when the moment comes, the order is given. The parchment is unrolled, the wax is stamped, and another Titan walks out of Halitus Ossa into a galaxy that no longer remembers how to scream. To witness one of these Titans in action is to feel the edge of sanity. While every god engine is a marvel of destruction and reverence, those from the Omega Zone operate on a wholly different rhythm, less like machines of war and more like avatars of sorrowful inevitability. Their machine spirits do not roar with exultation or blood hunger like their kin. They whisper, they lament, and they remember things no engine should. Princeps linked into the Omega Titans through the manifold interface do not report conventional sensations. Traditional communion involves a blend of sensory override and emotional synchrony, pain, triumph, fury, vengeance. But those bound to Omega constructs speak of echo chambers filled with static grief, of memories that do not belong to them, of screaming choirs singing liturgies in reverse. The deeper the neural bond, the more profound the decay. Many princeps descend into recursive insanity, trapped in feedback loops of despair. Some dissolve entirely, mentally and biologically, their brains liquefied by exposure to thoughts not meant for mortals. These machine spirits are not simply old, they are haunted. Some tech scholars speculate that the Titans may contain the aggregated residual psyche of entire civilizations, uploaded into Titan cores before extinction. Others claim they were forged from cursed scrap, Xenos alloys that remember death, or fragments of Blackstone bastions that once denied the gods themselves. Whatever their origin, they are alive in the wrong way, too aware, too reflective. They kill not from protocol, but from something that feels like sadness, an existential duty to reduce the universe to silence. The visual and auditory manifestations of these spirits are terrifyingly unique. Omega Titans often broadcast low-frequency moans across battlefields, detectable only to sensitive Vox units, but experienced by organic troops as feelings of oppressive melancholy. Tech priests describe ocular systems that bleed lubricant unbidden, targeting arrays that refuse to fire unless reciting lines of ancient scripture, and Auspex devices that perceive targets not as enemies, but as condemned entities in need of release. Aboard one such Titan recovered after the scouring of Gelgoth's Reach, the interior revealed an impossible structure. Internal walls covered in overlapping layers of bone and brass etched with cyclical scripts, as though the machine had grown a cathedral within itself. The Princeps cradle was found empty, but the neural imprint persisted, communicating only a single phrase repeated for hours. "I dream the dream that ends all waking." Crew reports often confirm bizarre alterations in their mental and spiritual states. Moderati have awoken with unknown scars along their spinal columns, and servitors installed into Omega Titans either shut down immediately or begin speaking in archaic dialects not logged in any Imperial lexicon. Entire tech teams have vanished during post-battle maintenance, their biometrics erased, their presence denied by Mechanicus records that previously logged them in perfect detail. It's as if the Titans slowly absorb their surroundings, crew, knowledge, even space. Attempts to exorcise or sanctify Omega Titans have uniformly failed. Even veteran confessors and sanctioned psychers experience overwhelming dread in their presence. Some efforts end violently, psychers exploding in showers of data and gore, or confessors speaking in tongues until their hearts rupture. The Emperor's light, it seems, dims around these engines. They carry a darkness immune to faith. And yet, in the eyes of the Adeptus Mechanicus, this is not failure. It is purity in a form misunderstood, not heresy, not corruption, just the perfect silence of an engine that remembers too much. And so they march, engines with haunted souls, bearing the weight of forgotten sins, existing to annihilate more than just the enemy. They grind through worlds not as tools, but as omens, as reminders that in the grim darkness of the far future, even gods can weep. It was at the Boma Rift that the full dread of the Omega Zone Titans was laid bare. What began as a standard suppression campaign against an emergent xenoform rapidly escalated into one of the Imperium's most enigmatic losses. The rift itself, a torn slice of space threading through the remnants of ancient warp quakes, had long been classified as unstable but navigable. Explorator teams reported the presence of crystalline fauna, sporadic psychic interference, and clusters of derelict void craft bound together as if in orbit around an unseen gravity well. But it was only when entire regiments vanished within days of planetary insertion that the High Lords authorized the unthinkable Omega deployment. 3 Reaver-class Titans descended upon Baphomet Prime, accompanied by minimal support. No formal declarations, no war council, just an astropathic silence that deepened with their arrival. From orbit, void monitors witnessed a curious phenomenon. The sky above the planet dimmed, not clouded but darkened, as if light itself feared what had come. No atmospheric explanation could be given. No rational cause suggested. The Titans began their march at once, converging on a point in the wilderness unmarked on any prior survey data. The battle reports, such as they are, read like the transcripts of a dream unraveling. Vox logs from Astra Militarum units quickly devolved into babbling. One lieutenant's last transmission included the phrase, "They're walking through time. We see them, but not now." Another shouted about iron shadows screaming in reverse. Entire platoons collapsed without contact, struck dead by what Medicae units could only describe as cellular atrophy consistent with thousands of years of aging. Instruments failed. Watch servitors scrawled endless strings of zeros, then spontaneously combusted. And yet, the enemy, the Xeno presence, was annihilated. Whatever they had been, no trace remained. Not in the biological sense, but in an ontological one. Cogitators designed to record Xeno data returned null values, as if the enemy had never existed. The battlefield, a scorched and glassed crater spanning over 50 kilometers, offered no evidence of resistance. No broken weapons, no bone fragments, not even atmospheric disturbance data. Just silence, and 3 Titans standing still, facing outward, as if watching for something that never came. By the time recovery fleets arrived, only 1 Titan remained. Its nameplate had been melted off, its reactor exposed and cold. The other 2 had simply vanished, despite constant orbital surveillance. No warp signature, no movement logs. They were there, and then they were not. Attempts to enter the remaining engine failed. Boarding servitors shut down. Data probes were obliterated by feedback pulses. The only successful penetration came from a single Magos Dominus who walked into the cradle alone. His final words, recorded by a servo skull at the threshold. It remembers being more than a Titan. The aftermath was equally troubling. Of the 30,000 troops deployed prior to Omega arrival, fewer than 600 survived, and of those, nearly all were declared mentally unfit for service. Many refused to speak. A few tried to blind themselves. One commissar gouged out her tongue after repeating a phrase in a language no linguist has yet translated. The planet was sealed, renamed on all official records, and declared non-existent. Boma Rift remains unspoken in most Imperial circles, save for those whose nightmares keep dragging them back. The Omega Zone Titans were not deployed again for another 20 standard years. But in that time, something changed within the Imperium's highest levels. Requests for Omega engagement were rerouted, inquiries buried. It was as if the events at Boma Rift were not merely a military operation, but a revelation, and one the Imperium could not bear to name. They rarely survive, but sometimes they do. And those few who return from campaigns involving Omega Zone Titans do not return whole. Physically, they may remain intact, though many are marked by strange afflictions: skin that calcifies under moonlight, eyes that see void echoes, neural pathways that respond to non-existent frequencies. But it is the mind that suffers most. These survivors are not heroes. They are broken instruments of remembrance, living records of encounters with something beyond comprehension, and most of them wish they had died instead. Take the case of Colonel Hathrick Veer, once a decorated officer of the Vostroyan Firstborn, now a whispering wretch kept under lock in a Schola Psychologica isolation cell. After a campaign in the Drazel Wastes, where Omega Titans were deployed without prior warning to the troops, Hathrick returned alone, pulled from a dead Chimera wreck by a patrol 20 kilometers from the battlefield. He spoke only in numbers for 3 days. Then he began drawing spirals in his own blood, spirals that, when examined, matched the subsurface topography of Halitus Ossa, a structure he'd never visited or studied. Sister Alethea of the Order of the Eben Veil was another. Deployed as part of an ecclesiastical detachment on Zenthra 9, she survived the Omega intervention only because she was trapped beneath a collapsed habdome for most of the battle. What she heard above her shelter she never fully described, save to say that it was not war, but lamentation made thunder. After rescue, her vows remained, but her speech was reduced to catechisms of inverted meaning. When she recited the Emperor's benediction, it came out backwards, and worse, it was recognized by a black ship astropath as containing linguistic patterns found in pre-heresy data tongues, mixed with high Gothic and something else. The most terrifying accounts are the ones from Skitarii. These soldiers are already augmented, their minds partially shielded, their loyalty burned into their synaptic lattices. Yet they too falter. Tech Guard who survive exposure to Omega maniples often enter fugue states in which they begin modifying themselves, tearing away implants, replacing them with crude symbols made of scrap metal and bone. One group was found in a circle, surrounded by their own torn-out oculars, chanting, "We were not meant to see." None of them lived longer than a week after the campaign ended. Not even Astartes are immune. A librarian of the Iron Hands, known only by the designation Hekaros, participated in a brief campaign on the edge of the Edel line. After fighting alongside an Omega Reaver for 3 days, he requested self-execution from his chapter master, claiming he had touched the entropy beyond logic. His gene seed was extracted, but his skull was sealed in an adamantium reliquary, still humming with faint binary pulses centuries later. The Administratum treats these accounts as classified anomalies, burying them in layered data vaults that require triple-grade purity access to retrieve. Officially, there are no survivors from Omega engagements. Casualty lists are marked total. War memorials skip these campaigns entirely. Entire regiments are struck from munitorum rolls. On rare occasions, someone, usually a desperate inquisitor or rogue magos, will attempt to track down a living survivor seeking truth or madness. Most never return. Among the few rogue scribes and archivists who dare piece together the accounts, a chilling theory forms. The Omega Titans do not merely destroy enemies. They erase context, memory, identity, even causal history seems to unravel in their wake. Those who survive are not witnesses. They are errors, glitches in a system that cannot accommodate the truth of what these god engines are or what they herald. In whispered corners of Imperial space, there's a phrase: "Pray you die before the Titans arrive." For those who don't, death may yet be the only true salvation. There exists within the annals of the Adeptus Mechanicus a doctrine so buried, so entombed beneath layers of secrecy and willful ignorance that few outside the highest echelons of the cult even acknowledge it. It is known in fragmented texts as the Silence Protocol, and tied to it is a second, more dreadful decree, the Doctrina Exterminata. Together they form the framework by which Omega Titans are authorized, deployed, and, more chillingly, forgotten. The Silence Protocol is an operational edict dating back to the shadowy latter days of the Great Crusade, a time when the Mechanicum still walked in lockstep with the nascent Imperium, and the horrors of the Horus heresy were only distant whispers. It was created not as a wartime measure, but as a safeguard, an esoteric set of parameters dictating the containment and use of war assets deemed ontologically unstable. These were technologies not merely dangerous, but contradictory. Things that defied natural law, that reshaped reality not through force, but through denial. Titans that unmade history or erased meaning. Under the protocol, such engines could not be studied or reverse engineered. Their activation required dual sanction, one from the red vaults of Mars, and one from a now lost data obelisk believed to have resided in the Imperial Palace itself. The doctrine was intended to limit not only their use, but the very knowledge of their existence. Those who encountered a Silence-class asset were marked for erasure, sometimes literally, often metaphorically. Memories were scrubbed, records were redacted or destroyed. In some cases, whole campaigns were recontextualized to remove the Titans from official narrative. Then came the Doctrina Exterminata, less a protocol than a dogma. Where the Silence Protocol contained and constrained, the Doctrina encouraged obliteration. It was born of the recognition that some Titans, some technologies, should not return, that their destruction was preferable to their repatriation. If a maniple of Omega Titans completed its task, it was not expected to return to Helitis Ossa. If it attempted to, it was to be terminated, by Void Strike, by Mechanicus Kill Code, or in the most extreme cases, by psychic nullification via Culexus deployment. The reasons for this are hinted at in the few fragments that survive. One codex crypt refers to recursive contamination of noospheric truth state. Another speaks of epistemic collapse on system re-entry. In simpler terms, these titans accumulate anomalies. They do not merely destroy enemies, they warp meaning, presence, memory. Bringing them back risks infecting reality itself. Their continued existence past a certain threshold is a threat to the coherence of the Imperium's psychic lattice, to the Emperor's dream of ordered humanity. In effect, the Titans rewrite the world just by surviving. This philosophy is alien to the cult Mechanicus as we know it. The Mechanicus worships knowledge, data, truth, even corrupted forms of it. But the Omega Titans seem to have pushed even these data priests to the brink of heresy. The Doctrina Exterminata demands that knowledge of the Titans' final actions be denied, that they be unremembered, that their glory, their horror, be unmade. This is not mercy. This is preservation of the lie that the galaxy still makes sense. Field application of these doctrines has led to cold-blooded actions. In one instance, a Skitarii Titan retrieval unit was ordered to destroy a damaged Omega Warhound attempting to return from the Gorgal Exodus. The Titan did not resist. It walked into the kill zone, kneeled, and lowered its plasma destructor as if in prayer. The tech priests wept as they launched the melta-charges. Later scans found no wreckage, only a crater in the shape of an eye. To this day, Mechanicus fabricator cults that operate near the Omega Zone include rituals for exercising memory, not just banishing demons or purifying code, but excising the very thought of what was seen. The Silence Protocol is not just a law, it is a cultural scar passed in secret, reinforced by fear and ritual. And the Doctrina Exterminata ensures that when the Titans are gone, they are gone. From the battlefield, from records, from history itself, as if they were never real, as if they were just dreams the galaxy could no longer afford to dream. The most chilling aspect of the Omega Zone Titans is not what they bring, it is what they lack. For all their dread presence, for all the psychic trauma they inflict, and the war zones they obliterate, there is a distinct and glaring absence. The corruption of chaos. In a galaxy perpetually torn by demonic invasion, warp mutation, and unholy worship, one would expect such engines of anomaly and despair to bear the touch of the ruinous powers. Yet, they do not. There are no warp rifts in their wake, no symbols of the dark gods carved into their hulls, no gibbering flesh growths or impossible geometries. The Omega Titans do not scream the names of chaos. They do not bleed ichor or leak warp stench. They are cold, sterile, and precise. Their nightmares are not those of excess or ambition, of hatred or pestilence. They are of erasure, of disconnection, of unbeing. And perhaps that is why they are feared more than any demon engine. They offer not damnation, but silence. A final end. Even the Inquisition has taken notice. Ordo Malleus field agents sent to observe Omega deployments often return with more questions than answers, and some do not return at all. Reports filed under triple encryption describe null space readings that deviate from known warp anomalies, zones of total psychic deadening that not even black ships can penetrate. One Inquisitor wrote before vanishing, "This is not chaos. This is anti-meaning, an abnegation so complete it shames even the warp." Scholars of the esoteric fringe within the Ordo Hereticus have developed a rare but growing theory that the Omega Zone Titans may represent a third force, not the Imperium, not chaos, but something else, something older. Perhaps a remnant of a pre-warp civilization, one that understood the warp as a disease and created engines to sterilize it. Others believe they are weapons designed to erase the metaphysical, constructs meant not to kill, but to *unmake*. Their targets are not merely physical entities, but concepts, histories, timelines. There are even whispers, heresy of the darkest sort, that these titans are what happens when a soul is denied its afterlife, that their machine spirits are the compressed agony of countless beings who, upon death, found no emperor, no warp paradise, no demonic realm, only void. That they are vengeance made real, engines forged not in hate, but in disillusionment. The anti-faith given form. Mechanicus records, even the few that dare discuss them, consistently label Omega Titans as clean, free of taint, free of deviation. Even under extreme scrutiny, purity scans, psychic audits, sanctified augury, the results return empty. Not *positive*, empty, a null result, no data, as if the Titans were not there at all. This absence is perhaps the most damning evidence. Chaos corrupts. It marks *, but these Titans seem to pass through even the Eye of Terror itself without drawing the attention of the demonic. One warhound was reportedly lost in a warp rift during the War of Echoes, only to reappear 2 decades later, fully intact, entirely unchanged, and unobserved by any demon or chaos cultist during its absence. The warp, it seems, does not touch them, or perhaps it does not recognize them. This has led some to posit that the Omega Titans do not oppose chaos. They erase the battlefield upon which chaos is fought. They deny the spiritual arena. In their presence, faith falters, demons dissipate, sorcery loses its grip. Not through sanctity, but through something colder, something surgical, as though they are instruments wielded by a forgotten force whose only commandment was, end all stories. In a galaxy defined by extremes, light and dark, hope and despair, the Emperor and the gods, there is no place for neutrality. Yet the Omega Titans exist as something beyond dichotomy. They are the void between thoughts, the pause in the chant, the gap in the machine code. Not corrupt, not holy, just the cold truth that some things were never meant to be known. Among the most forbidden fragments ever recovered from Omega Titan missions are what the Mechanicus refers to as Blackbox echoes. These are not standard battle logs or structured telemetry. They are shards of machine soul feedback, errant bursts of noospheric resonance recorded when the link between Princeps and Titan becomes strained, when thought and engine bleed together too violently to remain distinct. In most legios, these echoes are used to refine tactics or resolve malfunctions. In Omega Titans, they serve only to horrify. The fragments recovered are always partial, distorted, corrupted by static and tone-shifting language that resists decryption. One such echo, intercepted during the final hours of the Nemic's reclamation, begins with Princeps-level speech. We descend upon the breathless tomb. But then the voice doubles, splitting into 2 tracks, one a child's whimper, the other a cascade of what sounds like reversed scripture. Analysts who tried to piece the fragment together reported intense migraines, vivid hallucinations of dead stars, and in one case, full neural collapse. What these echoes reveal is something far more intimate than tactical data. They are confessions, not from the Princeps alone, but from the Titans themselves. A Warhound Titan designated Theta Vox Incarnate was found in the wreckage of a collapsed asteroid fortress, partially intact but abandoned. Its Cortex log replayed a single phrase over 30,000 times. You left me in the thought before pain. There were no signs of the crew, no breach in the cockpit, just the words etched into every feedback channel like scars. There are more disturbing examples. One echo contained the unmistakable sounds of children laughing, overlaying battle data from a siege where no civilians were present. Another played a musical refrain, a tune resembling pre-imperial Terran lullabies, timed to every activation of its plasma annihilator. In the background of these logs, tech scholars have identified ghost layers, Subharmonic data pulses theorized to be the echo of the machine's own memories. These aren't remnants of past battles. They are something else, recollections from before the Titan was forged, from a time no human should remember. Noospheric bleed from Omega Titans often infects adjacent devices. Data slates warp into blank slates of white noise. Servo skulls fly erratically, then self-destruct. Tech priests assigned to record Blackbox transmissions often speak of feeling watched, not by the Titan, but by the signal itself, as if the act of observation were being returned. One senior Lohimagos noted, "This is not residual code, this is attention. The Titan is *aware* of being observed, and it resents it." Machine ghosts are the Mechanicus' unofficial term for these phenomena. Ghosts that weep, that mimic their lost crews, that send phantom pain through cybernetic interfaces. One tragic case involved a tech adept named Valen 7, who attempted to integrate with a dormant Omega Titan for maintenance. The moment he connected, his voice changed, matching the long-deceased Princeps who once piloted that very engine. He recited battle reports from campaigns no one remembered, described dreams of oceans that never existed, then fell silent. His body lived for another 9 hours. His mind never returned. Attempts to purge these echoes have failed. Sanctified code runs crash. Exorcism rituals do nothing. Even psychic interventions led by trained sanctioned psychers have yielded only screams and memory loss. It is as if the Blackbox echoes are not data, but artifacts of reality distortion. Memories so potent they refuse to die, and instead reanimate inside the walls of the Titans they once fueled. The Mechanicus now locks these recordings in the Vault's penumbra, a sealed databank buried beneath Phobos Cryptia, protected by cogitator priests who have had their auditory centers surgically removed. Listening is forbidden. Translation is heresy. But even still, the echoes persist. They leak through static, through vox, through dreams. And somewhere in the heart of the Omega Zone, the Titans remember, not just their own battles, but yours. They do not speak. They do not weep. They do not sing songs of victory or sorrow. The Titans from the Omega Zone simply vanish, and in their place, silence marches home. This silence is not merely the absence of sound. It is a metaphysical wound, a hollowing out of the spaces they once tread. Cities razed by their passage never truly rebuild. The soil grows cold and brittle. The air feels thin, as if some essential element has been extracted. Even years later, veterans of those campaigns report sensations of being watched, of hearing gears grind where none should be, of glimpsing shadows too vast to belong to anything mortal. It is as though the memory of the Titans persists long after the flesh and steel are gone, but only in the way nightmares persist. Archivists tasked with cataloging these campaigns often find entire data vaults inexplicably blank. Munitorum requisitions vanish. Strat reports erase themselves. Inquisitors dispatched to make sense of the pattern return shaken, or not at all. The Administratum pretends this is a matter of corrupted files or warp interference. But deeper within the Imperium's data core, within the sealed cogitators known only to the Lords of Mars and the Black Vault of Terra, there is another truth. The silence is a message, a signature, a result. The Imperium has always known that war leaves scars. But the scars left by Omega Titans are of another order. They are not wounds upon planets or people, they are incisions into reality itself. Proof that the galaxy is not whole, that somewhere within the sacred logic of the machine god or the divine word of the Emperor, there lies an unspeakable flaw. And those who glimpse that flaw, even for a moment, are forever marked. Theological doctrines have tried to adapt. The more progressive sects of the cult Mechanicus speak of the Omega Titans as necessary evils, blessed weapons whose price is memory, whose holiness is in their annihilation of noise, confusion, rebellion. Others dare to worship them directly, forming underground cults dedicated not to the Omnissiah or the Emperor, but to the Silence itself. These cults believe the Titans are not tools of the Imperium, but emissaries from a higher plane. Not destroyers, but heralds of an inevitable quietude, where all things end not in fire, but in stillness. But such cults are rare, hunted. The Imperium needs its myths intact, its stories of valor, its epics of sacrifice. It cannot allow the idea that its greatest weapons are also its greatest mysteries. And so, each time the Omega Zone opens its gates, each time a Titan walks forth into battle, the ritual begins anew. The rites of forgetfulness, the prayers of erasure, the bureaucratic silence. And when the campaign ends and the last transmission is cut, the last Auspex signal lost, there is only that final, inescapable truth. The Titan does not return. It never does. Its silence returns in its place, filling the gaps in the archive, gnawing at the edges of the memory. A silence so profound it rewrites history itself. In that silence, we find the final lesson of the Omega Zone. Not all stories are meant to be told, not all engines are meant to be revered, and not all ends are marked by sound. Some are marked by the absence of all things. Thank you for journeying into the silence. If this descent into the darkest corners of the Imperium has moved you, if you too feel the weight of the unspoken and the power of the untold, then subscribe. Let the channel be your shrine to the forgotten. Let us remember what none else dares to. For in the grim darkness of the far future, even silence leaves a legacy.